So the other day I was thinking, I was watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and at the beginning of the movie, there's the car chase. They leap out of Club Obi-Wan, and they fall through the awnings and they land in the car, and they shouldn't have survived, but hey, it's Indiana Jones. And he turns around, his hat short round, he says, as they're getting in the car chase, he says, "Okay, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes." And at the end of the movie, he's climbing up, and he gets to the top of the bridge after he's killed them all around and he's getting eaten by the things, and he puts the Shankara stone down. And what does the Shankara stone look like?
I never realized that.
A potato. This hit me at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Like I woke up with this in my mind. He says, "Hold on to your potatoes," and he held on to his potato. Sure enough. Okay. Mostly movies where we mostly discuss movies. Mostly. I'm Dan Seary, and this is John Seary. And if it must be a bright, cold day in April with the clock striking 13, because we're going to talk about 1984, son.
1984.
Great year for movies, and we're going to reveal some of our favorites from that year. I've got my Purple Rain shirt, my little 1984 hat, Ingsoc. I do not support Ingsoc, but it's a pretty cool hat, so I'm wearing it. And it's got to be better than how California is being run right now. That's just my opinion.
And just a little tribute to our Batman
You found Batman
video. I found Batman cards.
What's the name of that comic book store?
It's called Comic Relief. It's on
Comic Relief in Tom's River. Check it out. We're going to make that place famous.
Yes.
Hopefully they make us famous. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you all get famous. Because, rent is due on the 5th. Then,
Yeah.
But there's a couple of honorable mentions I'm going to talk about before we go into our favorite movies. Actually, I just saw 1984 this morning. Yes, we're going to do that. I saw 1984 this morning, and then I watched Purple Rain, which I had never seen the whole movie. I watched it on Peacock. It was a strange double feature, but I liked both movies very much. I think Prince did a good job. He was the right blend of just kind of like, you think he's a jerk at first, but then you see some of his story, and you realize it was like a good version of Saturday Night Fever. I'm not a fan of Saturday Night Fever, but I really like this one. Even though he wasn't entirely likable, I think he was a very good actor and a good screen presence. And I know he did a few more movies which didn't work out, but Prince was just a great performer. R.I.P. Prince. But we're going to talk about some movies that did come out in 1984 as well as Purple Rain, and John's wearing Ghostbusters.
Yes, I'm
wearing
Ghostbusters
movie
today.
Unbelievable film. So just rattle off some titles and we'll react to them.
Yeah, I'll do a quick... they have like a list on IMDb.
I was a little too young to see it in theaters, and I was very upset. But then I saw it on video a year later. 1985 was a great year because that's when I caught up with a lot of these films on VHS. Like I still remember eating Joy's Pizza in Staten Island. Don't look for it, it's not there. But eating like their crispy pizza, watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I remember watching the beginning of it, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be
anything goes, right?
Going to be a great movie, and anything goes is basically the mantra for that whole movie.
That's true.
Insane. So, what are some titles?
So we're gonna touch on some of these throughout the thing, but I just want to go a quick run through of movies in 1984. A lot of movies came out that year. We'll also talk about a little bit of movies and music. I mean, music and TV too. Because a lot of shows started in 1984 too, really big. A lot of careers started in 1984.
We could talk about some sitcoms that went on TV in 1984. Go ahead.
Miami Vice too.
That was not Miami Vice.
That was not Miami Vice. That was not Miami Vice. And Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote started in 1984.
Well, we're going to do movies because it's mostly movies. We'll get to the other stuff later. But let's just start off with a list. Beverly Hills Cop.
Horns up.
The Karate Kid.
Horns up.
Ghostbusters.
Horns up.
Terminator.
Up.
Dune.
Up.
Last Starfighter.
Up.
Once Upon a Time in America.
Oh, I hate that movie. Very few films I say this about. That movie is depraved. And all these people tell me, oh, you'd like it more if you saw it on the big screen. I can't even imagine watching that horribly boring film on the big screen.
Yeah, we didn't like it when we saw it. Never Ending Story, Never Ending Story.
Up. The book is amazing. Read it.
16 Candles, John
Horns Up.
Footloose.
Nah, I saw this one recently. Horns Down.
A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, Horns Up.
The greatest horror movies. The original.
Great film.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, like we're going to get into later. Paris, Texas. Amadeus.
Never saw it.
1984, based on George Orwell, and it was released
Horns
in
Up.
1984.
Amadeus I got to see again. I haven't seen it since I was in 6th grade music class. I got to see it again.
Gremlins. Police Academy 1. So
Horns
the
up.
Police Academy series started in 1984. Body Double. I remember when that was on TV.
Body Double.
It's like we didn't have cable till much later on, so it's
you
like
watched Body Double on TV.
Yeah, I was like trying to see. I'm like, like your junior high school. You're like, oh my goodness, I got to check this.
There's
out.
nothing if it's on TV.
You sneak around. You're like,
I don't remember it that much. I think I haven't seen it since the De Palma retro in 2001, years ago.
Yeah,
I don't remember that movie at all.
But it's TV. It's like what can you do with TV?
Like the
in
TV
late
cut of
80s, early
Scarface.
90s, so
How did you get that scar? Eating pineapple?
Yeah,
they
pineapple.
cut the scar eating pineapple, man.
Pineapple. Against All Odds, like the great.
I never saw it.
I never saw the movie, but I love the
song.
Phil Collins song. Revenge of the Nerds.
I like it. Yeah, it's
Red
funny.
Dawn.
Oh, Wolverines, brother! I love that movie.
This is Spinal Tap. I mean, one of the
incredible
greatest movies
film.
of all time. Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
Good movie, yeah.
Blood Simple, Coen Brothers first.
Yes, great movie.
Top Secret, funny movie.
I don't remember it.
Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Which
Amazing
we will
film,
talk about.
very underrated.
Romancing the Stone.
Yes,
The Natural.
I got to see it again. It's been a
Streets
long
of
time.
Fire.
I haven't seen it in like 25 years.
Our favorite Friday the 13th movie.
Part 4.
Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Final
there
chapter.
were a lot more chapters
A lot
after
more.
that. But
It was like 11 more
it's
chapters.
our personal
after
favorite. Toxic Avenger, the first one.
Yes, great
Conan
movie.
the Destroyer, which is the second one.
I
right?
still
The
got to
Conan-
see it. I have it. I haven't watched it. It came in a 2-pack. I was bummed because I couldn't afford the Arrow 4K Conan the Barbarian, and I was really bummed. And then I'm at Goodwill, and they had Conan the Destroyer in a 2-pack on Blu-ray for $1.99. I'm like, all right, it's not 4K, but whatever, I'll take it.
Children of the Corn also came out that year.
I like that one.
Bachelor Party.
I still haven't seen it.
Supergirl.
Didn't see it.
Interesting thing about Bachelor Party, I think Splash also came out in 1984.
Splash,
So that's when
which we did see.
Tom
Little
Hanks,
5-year-old me,
was sort of on the rise. Tom Hanks.
little 5-year-old me watching Daryl Hannah walking around naked. I was like, what is this? This is movies? That was like my third movie. Like I saw Annie.
Movies is magic.
I saw yes. I saw Annie. I saw The Muppets Take Manhattan. Okay, your third movie, you're going to see Daryl Hannah naked. I'm like, oh my goodness.
That's a good trade-off.
Oh man. I will forever. She will be one of my evergreen crushes. Like I crushed on her when I was a kid, and then I saw Blade Runner when I was like 12, and I didn't get it at 12. I got it later, but I love her in that movie. Like her whole look. Like when I was writing a screenplay called Dawn, it was about an assassin. There was one of her. She would wear different outfits on each job, but one of her jobs, she's in like this goth club, and she's dressed just like Pris from Blade Runner. In fact, one of the girls in Lost on a Wave that the nerdy kid has a crush on is described to look like her too, the girl from Blade Runner. So, definitely a lifelong crush. She still looks great.
One of my first crushes was also this year. What's Love Got to Do with It by
Tina Turner.
One of the first music videos I remember seeing, and I said,
yes,
who is this woman? Like she's
Oh,
dressed
we
like
loved her.
she looked like she came out of like the Flintstones or something. She was wearing this ripped
outfit,
dress and everything. I'm like, with the crazy hair, and I'm like, oh my god!
Wow.
I says this woman needs to be in a Mad Max movie, and she later was.
That's another. That's another thing that's amazing about 1984 that a lot of people don't realize. 83, 84, those years. This was the birth of the music video, which was an emerging art form. See, we didn't have a lot of musicals in the 80s. It didn't happen in the 70s that much either, or the 60s. But in the 80s, we didn't have a lot of musicals, but we had the music video. And these were like little mini movies. Like, I think Thriller, which I also believe came out in 1984, Thriller is like a movie. And even John Landis did a whole like 20-minute segment before the video. And that's actually a very important video, Thriller, because it was the beginning of sell-through VHS. Because back then, VHS tapes cost like $90 or $100 because it was mostly a rental industry, not a sales industry.
Yeah.
But they sold that with the making of the video. It was like an hour-long video. They sold it, I think, for $19.99. And that was the very, very start. And then within 5 years, every tape was $19.99. Pretty much.
It's amazing.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
we do that here.
Well, speaking of music videos and everything, Purple Rain is the next one, which we also mentioned.
Very good film.
Night of the Comet.
Oh, I like that movie.
Repo Man, which we're going to talk
Man
about
is
later.
amazing.
Firestarter.
Never saw it.
2010, which was the sequel to 2001.
We watched a bit of it on cable, and then we got bored.
Starman.
Great movie. Great movie.
The Muppets Take Manhattan, which I thought came out like
film.
later, like 85 or 86.
No, it came out in 84. I saw it. That's not. I went Kermit.
And Muppet Babies did start that year too. Another
Muppet
TV
Babies.
show that started in 1984.
Show.
Let's see, Runaway. Actually,
Selleck.
It's funny because I was looking at music for 1984. There's a song called "Runaway" by Bon Jovi. He started coming up in prominence that year. Madonna started coming up in prominence that year. 1984 was a very big very big year for
pop
movies, music. In fact, when I was researching the music, they said, this is Rolling Stone magazine, said 1984 was the biggest year for pop music. So there's that. The Killing Fields, which is also a very serious movie about
Killing Fields is very good. It's very hard to watch, and especially since the guy really experienced this in real life, and then he's acting it out in a film, in a movie, and it was just it's heartbreaking. It's not like a movie you put on your 10 best list though, because like it's sort of like Schindler's List. It's like, well, this can't even be on a 10 best list. It's in its own category of film. Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, let's watch Killing Fields again, like it's Repo Man or something.
All the time.
No, it's a film. I'm more interested in movies, even though I can appreciate a great film, which it is.
And you have the Philadelphia Experiment, The Woman in Red, Lady.
I didn't see it. The Woman in Red.
Stop Making Sense.
Great movie
about
the documentary
about
film, Talking Heads.
Talking Heads.
Great movie.
You ever ask yourself? Let's see, Places in the Heart, Electric Dreams, Cloak and Dagger.
Places in the Heart I never saw. Electric Dreams is on Tubi. I watched a bit of it. I gotta finish it. Cloak and Dagger.
Chud.
Cloak and Dagger is
a great movie. The
late great, God bless you, Dabney Coleman.
We love
Chud is a good movie.
Dreamscape, which I think is one of the first PG-13 movies.
Yes, I gotta see it again. I don't remember it at all.
It says here that it was R, but I thought it was PG-13.
It's PG-13.
Cannonball Run 2.
Oh, a classic.
No. There's just so many movies. The Ice Pirates was a campy movie.
You know a movie's bad when you hate
Streets.
it when you're a kid. Because when you're a kid, you pretty much like every movie. When a movie sucks when you're a kid, you're like, man, imagine being an adult and have to sit through this terrible film.
Yeah,
The Ice Pirates was a mainstay on Channel 11 in New York. And it's, even when I was at my B-moviest, watching like Ed Wood movies and all that kind of stuff, I still was like, well, this is still garbage. What did you say?
Johnny Dangerously was another
funny movie. I like that one.
Let's see, Rhinestone.
Rhinestone I never saw.
The Lost Empire.
Never saw that.
Ghoulies.
Didn't see Ghoulies.
Missing in Action by
Missing in
Chuck
Action
Norris.
is really good. I haven't seen it in a long time.
All of Me with
Lily Tomlin. Carl Reiner film. It was good. It was funny. I haven't seen that since I was a kid, maybe. I didn't get it when I was a kid, though.
Silent Night, Deadly Night. That was the
first classic.
That one came out.
Never saw it. No.
Pope of Greenwich Village, which we'll talk about. Meatballs 2.
One of my favorite movies is The Pope of Greenwich Village. Oh, Meatballs 2 I didn't see. I didn't even see the first Meatballs. I've never seen any Meatballs.
They got the Flamingo Kid. Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo. One of the best sequel names.
Never saw it.
And oh my goodness, this list is.
Didn't The Gods Must Be Crazy come out that year? I never saw that movie, but I think it came out in '84.
Yeah, there's just so many.
It was from Botswana.
I can't. I mean, you can find this on Internet Movie Database. There's just so many different movies.
What do we got here?
That came out in 1984. Now we're getting into like
the real bad
down on the list. The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I refuse to see that. That was just. I think that was like repackaging of the first movie or something because Nightmare on Elm Street was such a hit. That's it.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, but that is like a big
get my laptop
list of movies. A lot of sequels, a lot of series that started that year. Nightmare on Elm Street, Police Academy,
and careers.
Police Academy was one of those things where it was popular in the '80s, but something like Nightmare on Elm Street, or by that time Friday 13 was already up to Part 4.
It's a low humor, but it is funny. It's not like this is not the Marx Brothers. This isn't Chaplin. It's not a high order of comedy, but it's still got some funny moments in it. And a lot of stuff you could never do in today's movie, like the Blue Oyster Club or any of that. There was a lot of gay panic in movies back then where, like, stuff like that would just randomly happen. And what happened with Police Academy was a thing that would happen in other movies, too, where they would just randomly be in a place and then find out that it's a gay place, like in Tough Guys when Kirk is having a beer and he's saying like, oh, I want to try one of those light beers because he was in jail for 30 years. And the old bar that he used to hang out with had now turned into a gay bar, and he didn't realize it. So this guy buys him a beer. He's like, oh, that's nice of you, friend. And they're talking. And then the guy says, shall we? He's like, shall we what? And he's like, shall we dance? And there was like men dancing in there, and that was the big thing. So that used to happen in all the movies.
Tough Guys was a funny movie.
It was Tough Guys was funny. Eli Wallach was great in it. The other guys, they're good. They're okay, but it's very dated. It's very 80s. But why are we talking about a movie from 1986? We got so many great movies from 1984. I have a top 10 list. Lists are relative, they're not absolute, so I might change the order of this list, and it might change around. But these are some honorable mentions to throw out. Blood Simple, the first Coen Brothers movie. A really good movie. I think their best film was their next movie, Raising Arizona, but Blood Simple is a very good opener. Stop Making Sense, like we said, The Karate Kid, which is it's a really good movie. You know, John J. Avildsen directed it. He also directed Free Willy and Rocky. And it's pretty much the Rocky story. And he kept doing the Rocky story. And you know what? The Rocky story works. It's pretty much the hero's journey thing. The older mentor, he meets a girl. He has to overcome an obstacle. He has to overcome his own demons. And it's it's definitely something primal. It's like something that we all feel inside. And it's like a journey that we more or less all have to face for ourselves. And that was really good.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
Sweep the leg. Another honorable mention is The Muppets Take Manhattan, which was the first... Together. The first Muppet movie I saw in theaters. I was too young for the other ones. It's a really good movie. It's the least of the original three, the Henson trilogy, but I love it very much. And I will say this. It has a great ending. The last, 20 minutes of that movie is just gangbusters, especially the wedding in the church. Always, as an adult, gets me very emotional. It's just a beautiful scene. And when they do that pullback and they have all the Muppets singing in the church, it's like the way I imagine heaven, you know? It's just, it's terrific.
Meat makes me ill.
When Kermit got hit by the taxi cab, you remember what happened? What I did? My reaction to that? All right, I was 5 or 4, almost 5. I was 4 something. What did I do when Kermit got hit by the car? I ran
out of the theater.
Ran for the exit, and Mom grabbed me right at the door. And I ran to the exit on the side, right by the screen. So when she grabbed me before I ran out the emergency exit into the parking lot, I look up at the screen and I just see Kermit lying there like this. And I'm like, he's dead. Oh my God. I was freaking out. I was going crazy. And she's like, he's not dead. He's okay. Look, he's okay. He's all right. He's going to be okay.
He's going to make it.
I was freaking out. It was not a good idea to bring me to the Muppets Take Manhattan. I think that's why they didn't bring me to another movie until The Goonies. I think the rest of 1984, I want to see Ghostbusters. No. I want to see Indiana Jones and the Temple. No. You're going to stay home.
Out, right? Remember the Goonies? We were watching it with Grandma.
Oh, yeah. With Goonies, the beginning of Goonies, what's his name pretends to hang himself.
He pretends to hang himself.
Jake Fratelli.
Yeah, Rose was like,
what kind of movie is this? The guy's hanging himself. Oh, my God.
Well, speaking of the Goonies, which I know came out the year after, there's 2 prominent movies, prominent for us, that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom has Data in it. And Friday the 13th Part 4 has
the Feldman. Corey Feldman. He's going to be at Chilla Theater this October. And I'm thinking about it. I really think, because I got those Goonie poems and I got a treatment for Gremlins 3 that I got to show this guy. And he'll be like, security.
One thing I have to say about the 80s, I think, certain decades take a little while to get going. I think like the 90s, like 1990 was still a lot like the 80s. But I think,
the middle.
Like 1991, when Nirvana hit, Kurt Cobain and stuff like that, I think that's when it started.
The 90s,
something different now.
It peaked early. The 90s peaked early.
But yeah, It started early. With the 80s, I really feel that 1980, when you had Empire Strikes Back, you still had some leftovers from the 70s.
Yes. But,
it was sort of like coming into a new thing. But by time, and then of course 83 is, big year, 82, 81. Yes. But I think 84 is like the most 80s of the 80.
Yes.
The 80s. Like if you want to pick a year where just like everything came together.
Eye of the Storm.
And if you look, like just the list that I just rattled off, look at the diversity of the movies in that. I mean, you have movies like Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, Ghostbusters, Gremlins. I mean, just very different types of movies. Corey Feldman was also in Gremlins too. So.
Gremlins is great. He was supposed to be in something else. I was just reading about it. I forgot the name of the movie. But it was like a well-known movie that he was almost in around this time, and I can't remember for the life of me.
Could it be Red Dawn?
No, it wasn't Red Dawn. But you know, Corey Feldman, one of his best movies that a lot of people, and I have to say, when I watched it again, I realized it was, and everybody think, oh, Dan's favorite movie of '86 is probably, you know, Big Trouble in Little China or Aliens. No, but he's great in Stand By Me, which is an amazing, I have to say, pound for pound, the best Stephen King adaptation ever put to film. Shawshank Redemption is great, but it's pretty much exactly the story, the book. I haven't read The Body, which was the impetus for that movie, but it's such a great movie. I watched it again recently, and you know, you can relate to that movie when you're a kid, but when you watch Stand By Me as an adult, it really hits you on a different level. You really... like, you remember being that age and you remember being a kid, and it's very timeless, that film. But other honorable mentions: Red Dawn, we said, Wolverine. Great movie.
Avenge Me.
Avenge Me. Harry Dean, man, he's great. Which features my man crush, Patrick Swayze.
Oh, Patrick Swayze, he's great.
Patrick Swayze
Roadhouse
is the most beautiful man that has ever been in movies. I don't care about your Brad Pitt and your Tom Cruise. Patrick Swayze, and I miss him so much because I could...
Swayze dog.
The Swayze. You like, even like when I worked at Texas Roadhouse, like how I had my number saved in there was because Roadhouse. So the number was saved as Swayze. So it said Swayze is calling. I'm like, oh, they probably want me to come to work early today. But Patrick Swayze was great. I mean, I really miss him. Again, I had never seen Dirty Dancing, and then Carla showed it to me. I said, well, there was no reason for me to watch Dirty Dancing, because that's like kind of a movie you watch with a girl, because the girl will tell you, this is a movie that I love and I want to watch it with you. I never got to that point. That's usually like the fourth date, is you watch Dirty Dancing with a girl. I never got there. Well, we're from Staten Island, so you probably watched Dirty Dancing on like the second date. But there wasn't a lot of second dates either, let alone fourths. But we watched it. Carla showed it to me, and I'm like, this is a really good movie. And, you know, Swayze dog is great. And she's great. I love Jennifer Grey, and they had such chemistry together, you know? And you wouldn't think it, because she doesn't really have, like, a real leading woman look to her, but she was great in that movie. And her dad was, I think, Jerry Orbach, right? Or am I thinking that's Say Anything? I'm getting my movies confused.
I think, no, Jerry Orbach, I think, was...
Jerry Orbach is in that movie. But wasn't he in Say Anything? I think.
Say Anything was, I think, the father from Frasier.
Oh, all right. That's right. Yes, John Mahoney.
Holding up the radio.
Thanks, John. You're helping me out, bro.
Holding up the radio.
Say Anything is great. I'm not a big Cameron Crowe fan, although I love him for Almost Famous and Say Anything. Other than that, no offense, but not my cup of tea. Starman, we mentioned, great movie. A real departure for Carpenter because it's more of a dramatic film. Karen Allen was in that. Somebody was just mentioned the other day the movies that Karen Allen was in, and she wasn't in a ton of movies, but like almost every movie she was in was awesome. Like she was in Animal House, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Sandlot, Starman. Like she was in some great movies for somebody that is not really in a lot of movies. Man, she was in some bangers. 16 Candles was the debut of John Hughes as a director. Before that, he was just a writer. Like he wrote Vacation. It was based on one of his short stories.
I think he wrote Christmas Vacation too.
He later wrote Christmas Vacation. You know, funny thing about Christmas Vacation, the original director of that film was Chris Columbus, who's sort of like, you know, Zemeckis to Spielberg. There's John Hughes and there's Chris Columbus. Chris Columbus is like his like protege in a lot of ways. Chris Columbus had such a hard time with what's his face, Chevy, that he quit the movie, and he says, listen, we'll get somebody else on this movie. You can't deal with this guy, and we'll give you the next movie. And the next movie was Home Alone, which worked out very well for Chris Columbus. You know? Dune, the amazing thing about Dune, God bless you. The amazing thing about Dune is that it's not what I call a successful movie, but it's a movie that really leaves an impression, like right here. It's so visually stunning. The cast is so great, and they're really giving it their all. everybody in that cast like is given 110%. Sting and Kenny McMillan, Kyle MacLachlan, everybody's given 110%, and you feel it, and it had heart and it had sincerity. The new movie has none of that. There's no heart, there's no sincerity, there's just throat singing and crap. In this stupid new movie by Denis Villeneuve. I like Denis Villeneuve a lot, and I like Chris Nolan a lot, but guys, it's done. Your best stuff is here. Just make a couple more movies and just call it a day, because it's not the same.
Imagine if David Lynch directed Return of the Jedi.
Oh man, I think about that all the time. It would have been great, because like all of a sudden, like halfway through the movie, Divine would just show up, or like, you know, it's like, what's Patty Hearst doing in Jabba's palace? What's going on here? Yeah. Oh, I'm thinking of John Waters, not
John
David
Waters.
Lynch.
Both very quirky filmmakers, John Waters and...
Well, Dean Stockwell would have been in Return of the Jedi if we had David Lynch doing it, you know? He would have had him, he would have probably...
as like a rebel pilot.
Yeah, you could have him as General May Dean. Just put Dean Stockwell in there. Man, come on. You know, you could have like these quirky, these interesting character actors, you know, that you could have that are in a Lynch movie would show up in this film. But he directed Dune, and it's a bit of a mess, but it's a beautiful looking film. It has such a striking, such a strong and powerful vision. And if you watch the Spice Diver cut, it's 3 hours long. It's on YouTube of Dune. I'm telling you, I thought I saw all the lost footage, but no, there was footage I had never seen. Some guy assembled it all together, and the director's cut of Dune on YouTube, the Spice Diver cut, is phenomenal. Better than the Sci-Fi Channel and better than the Denis Villeneuve one. Denis Villeneuve, when he did the story, it took 5 hours. Now, to me, people got to understand something. When you adapt a book into a movie, here's the thing. Even if it's a long book, don't make a long movie. Make it 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. Don't make like a 5-hour, 2-part movie. Don't, because you might as well just read the book. If you're going to make this into a movie, you got to boil it down to its essence. Give me the soul of the story. Like Neverending Story is a perfect example. The movie only captures half of the book, the first half, because the second half of the book is more of a personal, introspective journey that would not have worked in the framework of the one movie. It would have been a second movie, and the sequels blew it. They didn't cover anything else from the book, really. But it becomes more of a soul-searching and an introspective story, because what happens is after he gets the medallion, anything he wishes for comes true. The problem is he keeps losing a little bit of himself. And it's just very hard to capture that on film. That's why they made the film. They boiled it down to its essence, and they made it just give me the soul of the book, which was defeating the nothing. Like with Dune, just get the soul of the story and put it on there. Don't just put everything in there. And you know what's funny? They had 5 hours to tell this story, yet it feels like they had less story. Like the 3-hour version on YouTube tells me everything I need to know about Dune. They have the Spacing Guild, they have all that stuff, the Padishah Emperor, this movie, and then to top it all off, I won't get into the ending. The ending stung. Yeah, I didn't like it. But Dune 1984, it was better in the 80s. You know why the old movies were better? Because they had heart and they had sincerity. Those are two things that are missing in a lot of today's movies. Enough about that. A Splash, we talked about. Romancing the Stone. Romancing the Stone is a good movie.
Yeah, DeVito was great. They were all great in it. I mean,
Danny DeVito was originally supposed to play Sala in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I don't know why they didn't go with him, but they didn't. And then he ends up playing a guy who's a little kind of like a Sala type of guy. Like he wears the same outfit and stuff. But his character was more funny.
It was written before Raiders of the Lost
Really?
Ark. It was like written 3 years before Raiders of the Lost Ark. But thank God we had John Rhys Davies in...
oh, yeah. It wouldn't have worked. I love Danny DeVito.
I love Danny DeVito, but...
It would have been too distracting because, like, everything that Danny DeVito does makes me laugh. He's very funny. Like, even in Batman Returns, as bad as that movie is, like, it's still kind of funny because I could still see, under all that makeup, Danny's still there and he's still making me laugh.
He's still the guy from Taxi.
Yeah, he's Louis De Palma. And Toxic Avenger, which
Avenger.
brings back memories of West Coast Video, the first time we saw that movie. Oh my God, that was great. They had a cult section. That was a cool video store because remember we'd go in there with our brother-in-law Phil, and we'd go into the cult section, And he's like, "Oh, you never saw Basket Case?" And we're like, "What's Basket Case about?" And it just blew our minds.
What's Basket Case Precious?
These movies that he showed us were insane. That was like how we saw Assault on Precinct 13, Toxic Avenger, a couple of others. I don't think we saw From Beyond. Oh, The Reanimator. That's the one that we saw. Another Stuart Gordon movie. The Reanimator was messed up. Oh my God! It's still, again, it's a movie that still makes me laugh.
There's certain movies that could only be made in the 80s. You know,
you couldn't make Reanimator today. You couldn't. That's why the 80s were perfect, because you could do anything in a movie. You could, any concept, any crazy idea, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and it's great. And you try to make that movie now, and it'll be like, oh, they're obviously doing camp. But, like, they were so sincere. They even had that guy, John Vernon or somebody, was in the movie as one of the cops. I'm like, man, these guys, they spared no expense. Cloak and Dagger is a great movie. We talked about that.
Yeah.
They hid government secrets on a video game cartridge for, like, the Atari.
Video game cartridge.
Bill Forsythe is in that movie before he started playing bad guys and badasses. He's in that movie. He's the computer guy. He's like, go get me a pack of Twinkies.
Right? Flat Top.
Yeah, Flat Top. And he's like, go get me a pack of Twinkies and stuff. Like, that's why I'm watching, like, was it Out for Justice? It was some Steven Seagal movie where he was the bad guy. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Morris. He's a bad dude. But there's a lot of, for a kid's movie, there's some pretty, it's like Hitchcock for kids.
Brutal. There's
some pretty brutal stuff. They're in a trunk and he's lying next to Morris's dead body. And then they have the lady that's missing a few fingers. When that scene, when you see her take off the glove and she's missing fingers, and then she puts the chloroform on his face, goodness. I screamed. I was like, oh my God, that was freaking out. Get out of there. That would never get a PG today.
No,
never.
So. That was intense. Cloak and Dagger.
Friday the 13th, Part 4. This movie.
What is there to say? It's just the greatest.
It's the culmination. The first movie's pretty good. The second movie's good. I wouldn't say good in like the way Lawrence of Arabia is good, but I enjoy it. Friday the 13th Part 3, which is the one that a lot of people hate. We love that one.
We love it because
it's not good.
It's 3D.
Again,
you know, they're shooting the popcorn out at you because they know it's 3D. They want to.
Or the yo-yo. Like it's not. Yeah. It's not. It's not Citizen Kane.
No.
But it's not even Citizen Toxie. But it's good. I mean, it's fun. But the fourth one is so much
Corey
fun.
Feldman and Crispin Glover. I mean, you can't,
I know.
George McFly. I'm sorry.
George McFly. I got very upset when George McFly died in that movie, and I realized something. I'm like, you know, most of these kids getting killed off in these movies didn't bother me, but I felt really bad when George McFly got it in Friday the 13th Part 4. Ted, where's a corkscrew? And then, like,
where's the corkscrew?
Jason kills him. He stabs him right in the hand, and he just takes care of him.
I would say Part 6 is also great, and
I love 6.
Freddy versus Jason, I thought was great.
You know, Part 7 is very good, and a lot of people, I've been talking to more and more people that don't like it. I'm like, it's like a cross between Carrie and Jason. It's a good movie, Part 7. But yeah, even by Part 6, it's like jumped the shark by then.
Yeah. It's so over the top 6.
There are things I like about 5, but that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, but the funny thing about it is that it's Part 4, the final chapter, and there were many more chapters after that. So.
Like 7 or 8 of them. I love Freddy vs. Jason.
I think they're still trying to reboot it. So.
They're rebooting it. There was some kind of issue with the rights. They were doing a Crystal Lake like prequel series, which stop with these prequels. I don't care about lore.
It's like
lore
Friday
sucks.
13th, The Acolyte.
Yes. Oh, The Acolyte.
That's why we're talking about 1984 movies that are 40 years old.
Because The Acolyte was, but it was just stupid. It was like, and it's not even all the woke stuff. It's not even, that didn't even bother me. What bothered me is this boring story that's going nowhere and doesn't mean anything, and it just doesn't matter. But we're getting off topic here. Let me just go to some movies right here. And you have something else?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, you know, we mentioned other movies when I read off the list.
I think I can get the whole top 10 done today. I think we'll have
time. I think we could definitely do it. But yeah, no, I'll just cover briefly, like, some of the TV shows that debuted in 1984. Miami Vice is one of them. I think Transformers as well.
Yeah,
debuted in 1984.
Yeah, Joe was 83, I think.
Miami Vice, Cosby Show, of course, you know, everything with Bill Cosby right now, but but that was a major show in the 80s. So Murder She Wrote was another Murder She Wrote.
Murder She Wrote. Grandma used to watch that.
Yeah,
that's a big. I would try to watch it with her, and it was like warm milk. It would put me right out.
All right, I'll do a quick thing of the
music.
The Night Court started already.
Night Court.
Who's the Boss? Airwolf. Highway to Heaven.
I remember
Dr. Ruth Westheimer. Rest in peace.
Oh, she just died.
Passed away.
She's like 90 something.
V the series, which we don't like.
Oh,
I like
God.
The first 5 episodes.
Didn't the Final Battle come out in 84?
Charles in Charge started them.
Didn't the Final Battle come out in 84 and then the series started in 85? I think.
Oh, I think it was like 83 and 84.
Oh, 84 probably was early in the year, and then the series. I don't know.
Later on.
Series was terrible, but the two miniseries.
Sometimes
were
IMDb
great.
might get things off.
Yeah.
Like Charles in Charge started out there. The Transformers, like I said. I guess Jeopardy, like the new version.
With Alex Trebek?
I guess so, 1984.
Thomas the Tank Engine. Thomas and Friends.
Kate and Ally. Kate, you drive
Kate and Ally.
Muppet Babies, which we mentioned.
Never see it again because of the rights.
Defender of the Universe, 1984.
The American version, right?
Let's see if there's any other major
Nothing
ones.
else that we worry
Rainbow
about.
Bright.
Rainbow Bright is good.
Yeah, and I think that, but just to show you, I'll go real quick over the music. But yeah, there were just so many songs. I wear my sunglasses at
night.
I am the warrior.
No, don't sing them.
No. You spin
Copyright. No, these songs aren't that good, though.
A lot of people started, two jumps. Well, it's funny. There's 2 jumps that year. There's Pointer Sisters,
Jump
for My Love.
And then Jump by Van Halen.
One of the greatest songs ever.
All right.
I just love that song.
I like it. It's a good album, too. What was... Not Fair Warning. What? Oh, I think their album was called 1984, right?
Their album was
because they had a couple albums before that, like Diver Down, Fair Warning. Those are great albums. But 1984 was a good album too.
Yeah, there was just.
I was thinking the Police had an album that year, but no, it was 83. Synchronicity.
Yeah.
But you know what was amazing about music is that an album will come out the year before, but then you'll be hearing it all through the next year. So a lot of times when I hear the Police, like I hear Every Breath You Take, I think of the 84, 85, because they were still playing it all over the radio,
Yeah, Take On Me. 99 Love Balloons.
A nice little pop song about nuclear annihilation. Only in the 80s, folks, do we get songs like that. In the Name of Love?
Wow, you too, In the Name of Love.
Pride.
I Ain't Missing You at All.
Did
we
you
talked
know
about Tina Turner.
That for the song Pride, we're not mostly talking about movies now. We're getting into mostly music.
Born in the USA.
Oh, I like that one. As a matter of fact, I was going to use that in when I did G.I. Joe Worlds Without End, because I was going to adapt Worlds Without End into one of the movies, and the whole story would be focused on Clutch, the whole movie, and how he's a big Bruce Springsteen fan because he's from Asbury Park. He's talking to the guys in the garage in the beginning, and they're all putting down Bruce, and he's trying to defend Bruce Springsteen. And then at the end, when they make the big assault on the Capitol because it's been taken over by Cobra, and the Sky Strikers fly over, and the song that's playing on the speakers is Born in the USA. And like Cobra Commander's trying to make this big speech on the anniversary of Cobra's reign, of their 50-year reign over the United States. And then it starts pumping through the airwaves, and where is this music coming from? That's not supposed to be on here. And that would have been cool if it happened.
And then last two, like I mentioned, Bon Jovi, Madonna.
Well, it all happened.
A lot of people had their start.
That's the thing about scripts and stories and songs and things that you write that don't necessarily get picked up, is that they did happen. They just happened in your head. Yeah. It's not like they don't exist. But just because it's happening in your head doesn't mean it's not real, as Dumbledore said.
Another thing about the 80s, I know this, I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but, Ronald Reagan won in 1980, won big in 1984, landslide. And, he was an actor. Of course, they mentioned in Back to the Future. It's like, the actor? He says, who's the vice president? Jerry Lewis, right? But anyway, I think he was part of the culture of, bringing confidence back to America. Because, America had gone through Vietnam and Watergate, and there's gas prices were through the roof, crime was getting out of control, and the 70s you had movies like Death Wish and all these other things. But I think like in the 80s, people started thinking more optimistic.
And what was great about
there
Reagan?
were dystopian movies, that we love, like Blade Runner and Terminator. But
what was great about Reagan too is that people that opposed him and people who didn't see it his way, they didn't go on Twitter, they didn't make a comment at a concert after their shitty songs played. Excuse me. They made a movie about it. Okay. John Carpenter wasn't happy with Reagan. You know what he does? He makes the movie They Live. Mm-hmm. He doesn't go on Twitter. He doesn't make a little comment. He doesn't do a little snippet for CNN. No, he made the awesome movie They Live. And that's the great thing about when Hollywood and Washington are opposed, you get some good movies. Exactly. You get good movies because you know why? They're not just like, oh, let me hobnob with Washington. They're like, no, I'm mad that this guy or this girl is in, and I'm going to make a movie about it. That's what they do. And that is great. And that's how you subvert.
That's creativity.
That's how you make things that are subverting. Like, look at a movie like RoboCop. A lot of that movie is responding to the Reagan 80s. Yeah. And They Live. And a lot of that stuff. There was a lot of great anti-heroes in the mid to late 80s. Yeah. Like Jack Burton. And, again, we said RoboCop, we said They Live, but a lot of movies were about guys that didn't play society's rules, and they wouldn't conform to the man. And exactly. That's what an artist is supposed to do. An artist is not supposed to be buddy-buddy with politicians. They're supposed to create their art within the system of their country, but they're supposed to create something that has guts and stands up to the man. If they don't like what the man is selling, they make some good movies. I mean, we were lucky in the 90s that even though we had a Democratic president in the 90s, we still had movies that bucked the system, that said, well, even this guy's full of crap.
Wag the Dog.
Wag the Dog.
Remember, I worked at a Blockbuster Video when Wag the Dog came out on video. Mm-hmm. And when the whole thing with Monica Lewinsky was going on and we were getting into some skirmishes with Saddam again in the late 90s, What was the biggest seller at Blockbuster at that time? Wag the Dog.
By the way, if you have not seen Wag the Dog from 1997, Barry Levinson, the film is a masterpiece. And it will make you think about what's going on now, not to get too political, but what's going on now in our world and what's going to go on in the next couple of months. Watch that movie. Yeah. Also, watch The Parallax View from 1974, The Manchurian Candidate from 1962. Watch these films. These films are not just films. They are warnings. 1984 is a warning. There's a line in there, and I'm paraphrasing, where he says, if you believe I can float, and I believe I can float, then I can float. I can fly. And that's where our society is now. I mean, not to get too serious here. This is a very special, mostly movies. But that's the way society's going. So watch these films that warn us. My number one film of 1984 is a warning about what's happening right now. And if we don't heed these warnings, we're putting ourselves in a very scary situation. But let's get on that top 10.
Yes. One quick thing about the movie 1984, based on the George Orwell of 1984, and it came out in 1984, was John Hurt, right? Played the main character in it. Yes. And the interesting thing is, years later, when he's in V for Vendetta, he plays the Big Brother type character. Yeah. Which is funny because he plays Winston in the protagonist in 1984.
And then he plays
later on he plays the Big Brother.
V for Vendetta is pretty good. The movie's pretty good. The book is incredible. If you've never read...
The movie gets a little preachy, but...
It's a little preachy, a little convoluted, but if you read the book, the comic book from Alan Moore, V for Vendetta is a great book. By the way, with what's going on in our political climate, go to the library and check out V for Vendetta. Or even watch the film. That's actually a great movie.
Speaking of V for Vendetta, the election is coming up on November 5th, and he says, remember, the 5th of November. I'm just going to leave it at that, but I'm just saying. Just going to leave it at that one.
Kennedy 24. That's all I'm going to say. But, okay, so number 10 on my list is... it was almost Starman, but It's edged out by The Last Starfighter. And again, Starman may come back to this list and push something else out. But The Last Starfighter, we don't have to cover too much. Yes, there it is. I'll take that. Because we covered it in the last episode. This is a great release from Arrow. This was the Blu-ray. I know they just came out with 4K, but come on, man. I just bought the Blu-ray like 2 years ago. I'm not going to buy it again on 4K. I just bought it like 2 years ago, pal. What are you doing to me?
Doing the left.
That's like
I can't do it right now.
Just like with Legend. They brought out Legend on Blu-ray. And I'm like, I see what you're doing, Arrow Video. You're going to bring it out in 4K like in a year or two. I'm just going to wait to buy that Legend disc. But The Last Starfighter is a great movie. It's similar to Star Wars in a way. It's a kid in a trailer park. It's really like... I don't want to call it Hillbilly Star Wars.
Hillbilly Star Wars.
But it's kind of like...
I
like to refer to it as like all-American Star Wars. Like even more American than Star Wars. Because it takes place like in a trailer park. And isn't the guy that's like his rival, isn't it Willie Zabka from Karate Kid? Or is it the other guy? It might not be.
I think the guy in the rival is Brian from V.
Brian from V. Okay, I can't remember his name.
I believe it is.
I just know him as Brian. Great movie. Check out The Last Starfighter. Now, number 9. Ding, 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 ding.
Incredible.
Ding, ding. Nightmare on Elm Street. This is from that big box set that came out years ago. It's coming out on 4K this year, you know. I'm excited for that. Because I don't like rebuying stuff a third time. Like, if I only have it on DVD and I never got the Blu-ray, then I'm excited for the 4K. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, I don't really need the 4K. Nightmare on Elm Street is an amazing movie. It's really scary. It holds up. My first time watching it, of all things, was on like Channel 7 late movie. For some reason, I was up late, and I think you were asleep. And I just watched it alone. And even on TV, that's the test of a great horror movie. Actually, that's how we saw Friday the 13th Part 4, which was not scary. We just had a blast watching it, and it was more funny than scary.
The best shot is when she throws the TV on his head, and Jason's like...
I made a gif out of that, of her bashing his head in with the TV. It's beautiful. Which you couldn't do today with an HD TV. You hit Jason with an HD TV, it wouldn't even faze him. But back then, those CRT TVs through his head, it was like, whoa, that was amazing. It actually put him down for a few minutes, knocked him out. But I should be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, which is an amazing movie. Our introduction to Dracula of the 1980s, Freddy Krueger, brilliantly played by Robert Englund,
who was great in V.
We knew him from the guy from V, a nice guy, but he plays a maniac in this film.
And in real life, he seems like a really nice guy.
And that was my introduction to Wes Craven. And I think, Wes Craven is a much better director than he ever got credit for. He is very good. And I like The New Nightmare. I like the ones that he was involved with. He was involved with 1, 3, and 7.
And what's so great about it is that it
I do
doesn't
like
have
the
to
other
do
sequels.
all these jump scares every 5 seconds. What's so great about it is that even a scene when the mother is telling the story, and she takes out Freddy's glove. To me, that's one of the most chilling scenes
film in the whole film.
In all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. One of the most chilling scenes that you're like, all this time you had Freddy's glove in the basement. Mom, maybe you should have told me something beforehand.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm like,
it's a chilling scene.
It's because it's like keeping it's almost like keeping like a talisman of evil in your home. And you wonder some nights, like if the mom had a couple of glasses down and went downstairs and just put the glove on and just looked at it or something. Mm-hmm. I would have probably done a scene like that if I did it, because I do weird stuff like that in my stuff. But that's a great movie. Nightmare on Elm Street is fabulous. Heather Langenkamp was great. The whole cast was great. Little Johnny Depp was in this movie. And I heard a story that they were testing different kids, and he was one of the kids that came in to read. And Wes Craven's daughter took one look at this guy and was like, Dad, you got to hire this guy. Because, it's Johnny Depp, and he's a cutie.
Which woman doesn't love Johnny Depp?
Every woman loves Johnny Depp. And you know what? He had his issues, he had his problems, but they'll still love him. He's still Eddie Scissorhands. Yeah.
Just like in the first Friday the 13th, you had Kevin Bacon. So Kevin Bacon and then, of course,
Johnny Depp.
Two big major actors.
Did they ever do a movie together? They should do a movie together.
I don't know if they ever should.
I'm thinking they should do another Freddy vs. Jason.
But Kevin Bacon, you could tie him down to everybody.
They should do another Freddy vs. Jason, and they should put Johnny Depp and Kevin Bacon in it. I think that would be great. Just find a spot. No. Just find a spot for them somewhere. Okay, number 8 is The Pope of Greenwich Village.
Pope of Greenwich Village.
Great movie. Mickey Rourke, again, my heart. Daryl Hannah. And once again, my heart, Eric Roberts.
Eric Roberts,
Eric Roberts is amazing in this movie. Burt Young. Burt Young is the Bedbug Eddie, the Pope of Greenwich Village. That's who the Pope of Greenwich Village is. Burt Young, baby. He's the gangster. He runs that neighborhood. These guys, these bumbling fools get together. They try and steal some money from him. And Bedbug's like, yo, what's up?
You know, even when I was watching The Dark Knight, who Eric Roberts is also in The Dark Knight.
He's going to be
one of the mafia guys. But
Monster Mania, I want to meet
him.
But
it's, I always think of him from Pope of Greenwich Village, you know, and he's a great actor. Don't get any, you know, not to take anything.
He took my thumbs. And I like it too because he's a waiter, and I love in the beginning of the movie where he's like he's like posing in front of the mirror and stuff, and he's going around and he's like talking to all the customers. Everybody okay? Does anybody need something? And he's lighting some lady's cigarette when you could smoke in restaurants. I love movies because I work in the service industry. I love movies about restaurants and waiters and working in there, and then he gets fired, and they both lose their job that night. Him and his cousin, is Mickey Rourke, and it's an interesting story. It's a real slice of life movie. It's funny, it's serious, like it's all a range of emotions. It's a movie that really has everything, you know, and it's funny.
That's success pop.
Yeah. Could I do the speech? I don't know if I could do it. I never wanted no brandy in my life or ate some cordon bleu. I borrowed $500 from Loan Sharks to see Sinatra at the Garden. I sat 2 seats away from Tony Bennett. No, he says, knowing how to spend it. I forget the whole thing. I'm screwing it up. He says, I borrowed $500 to go see Sinatra at the Garden. I sat 2 seats away from Tony Bennett. Now that's success, Pop. Now, $500 back in 1984 to see a concert was a lot of money because it was probably about $30 to see Sinatra or $40. Today, it would be $500 for the nosebleed seats to see, like, Billy Joel. Like, you'd be sitting way up there for $500. But that was a bit of money back then. But he's so great, Eric.
And
the older brother,
Phil, got us into
Phil introduced us to that movie. Phil is one of our movie mentors, along with Chris Bly, Christian Lauro, and a couple of other people. But Phil was one of our great movie mentors in life, where he introduced us to a lot of movies we would have never seen or we would have seen years later. Like, I remember he showed us The Producers. I think I was like 12 or something when I saw that movie, and I'm like, this is the funniest movie. I love it. And we were Mel Brooks fans, but for some reason we never saw that movie. And a lot of great movies. The early works of Peter Jackson, like Bad Taste and Dead Alive.
Kick butt for the Lord.
Oh my God. Dead Alive is pretty good. That's one we should cover. Number 7. Now there's three movies in this set, but we're only going to talk about one. This is Gremlins, Gremlins 2, and The Goonies. We're going to talk about Gremlins. Gremlins is a great movie. Don't get us a copyright strike. Okay. Gremlins is a great movie. Great score by Jerry Goldsmith. The whole movie it's one of those movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and this. They have the same thing in common. A perfect blend of horror and humor. And of course, Gremlins is a little more funny because it's more of a family film. But in the second one, which I do love, they went way to the comedy side. Just like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is very scary and very funny. But in the second one, they went way to the comedy side. Because a movie like this that has kind of a very balanced, very difficult tone to balance out, it could go either all horror or all more comedy. But Gremlins has a perfect blend of everything. And it's really funny. And it's a movie that to this day, I still love and I still watch a lot.
Two of my favorite scenes. One, when the mother is getting back at them in the kitchen.
The kitchen is the best
scenes ever. I mean, like,
it's a slasher movie where the hero is the slasher.
Yeah,
she's basically murdering these gremlins left and right.
It's just amazing. And then the movie theater scene. I said, this is like a hood theater. It's like people are getting shot, people are getting stabbed. But the minute the song comes on,
it was like the Amboy.
Everybody's singing. Hi-ho, hi-ho.
Well, I
don't want to get sued by Disney, but
if anybody wants to know what the Amboy Theater in Sayreville, rest in peace, it's no longer there. the Amboy Theater in
Where I saw Batman
Sayreville.
89, yeah.
You saw Batman 89.
It is like...
It is like the
Gotham.
Gremlins Theater. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's like the Gremlins Theater.
There was a great second movie, and if God willing, there may be a Gremlins 3. If fate so smiles on this guy, I'll be like Corey at the Chiller Theater. Here you go. All I'm saying is that there's no version of Gremlins 3 that's better than the one I wrote. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but Hollywood, especially these young writers, these kids, nope. Okay, number 6. Mm-hmm. Amazing film, Repo Man. This film is like a beautiful, like Pat Oswalt described it, as almost like this dream version of Los Angeles. Like it's nice weather, but it's dirty, and it's gritty, but it's also beautiful. And they drive through that canyon that they drive through in like almost every movie, but for some reason it looks the best in this movie. Just the way Alex Cox directs it, the way it's written, it's so funny. The soundtrack is amazing. The idea that everything was no frills, like he'd be eating a can of soup and it would say soup or soda or something like that.
Milk, it just says milk.
And it doesn't explain why, and it's a great movie. Oh man, you guys have got to watch it.
It's like the anti-product placement movie.
You know what's so great about Repo Man? I'll tell you something about Criterions. There's a lot of them that are great, but there's a lot of them that you're not going to watch all the time. Like, I love Raging Bull. Raging Bull's an amazing movie. But I haven't seen it in like maybe 10 or 15 years. It's depressing. And a lot of those movies are a lot to take in. Yeah. Like, you're not going to watch The Seven Samurai every day or Kagemusha or things like that. But this movie, this is a Criterion title, along with Princess Bride, The Breakfast Club, a few others, that you could just watch all the time. And it puts you in a good mood. Because it's like a feel-good movie, even though it's not totally a comedy, it's not really a drama. It's just a really, really great movie. It's funny. Emilio Estevez is great, and I love like the father-son story between him and Harry Dean Stanton. That it's like a father-son relationship. It's just a great movie.
Again, Harry Dean Stanton, he keeps coming up.
He's great. Oh, Harry Dean he's the gift that keeps on giving for cinema. Great. All right, number 5. We're getting into the real deep end here. This is Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock.
We are Klingons.
We are Klingons. Don't call me Tiny. This is an amazing film, one of my favorites. And it got a lot of flack at the time, because look, it's not Star Trek 2, it isn't. But it's a great movie. It has a lot of funny lines. To me, it's my second favorite after Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
And that was tough, because for a long time it was neck and neck with number 6. Star Trek 6 is an amazing movie, don't get me wrong. But 3 still has the music from James Horner. I think that's the clincher that puts it over the top.
And of course, Christopher Lloyd
Lloyd is so good as a villain in this. And then a year later he played Doc Brown. But that's
a whole conspiracy theory about that too, that they go back in time in
using his ship
Star Trek 4. And then, people say that he's a time traveler because, of course, in Back to the Future in 1985. But anyway.
Yeah, I digress.
but this movie started a lot of things going. I mean, the look of Klingons was... That was the look. After this movie, that was the look.
Because for
your Star Trek fans out there and everything,
they did a little bit of stuff in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, but how they looked in this movie was really the definitive Klingons. And they were so awesome. Like, they were so bad in this film.
And it was directorial debut, right? Of
Leonard Nimoy. A lot of debuts this year.
And the 4th one. I wish he directed the rest of them, but the 6th one was great.
I think Shatner with 5, I think he just needed more time. I think if they took an extra year, but they really wanted a movie for summer of 89, and that was a shame, because they really rushed it, and they just should have gotten the story great before they went and did it, because I think directing-wise, he did a pretty good job. There's some great acting in that movie.
Yeah, there's some.
But it's just not really a good movie. Part 5. It's just very convoluted. You know what Star Trek 5 is now? Star Trek 5 is. It's like Star Wars now. It's all convoluted and it makes no sense. And characters come and characters go, and you don't know who's who, and it doesn't make any sense. And I think Star Trek 3, though, is just really a lot of fun. It's a great movie. Next up is Ghostbusters. This is a great movie from 1984. Again, a movie that balances the horror with the comedy, and they do a really good job with
Another great score too, like we talked about Gremlins and everything.
Oh, by Elmer
Bernstein. Very
Bernstein.
rarely do you see, unless it's like a soundtrack movie like a Blues Brothers, but very rarely do you see like, comedies having really great scores. Yeah. But those were two
Elmer Bernstein
ones, Gremlins and Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
and it's very New Yorkish. It's also spooky at the same time, but it's also very New Yorkish. Yeah. The music and everything, the vibe of the movie, and it's just. To me, it's lightning in a bottle. And the other sequels and stuff like that. And Ghostbusters 2 is a fun movie. I'm not taking anything away. But just the vibe of that movie is just, it's right smack in the middle of the 80s.
Yeah.
By all accounts, it should have flopped. And it was a huge success. It was a huge success.
What's interesting, too, for a comedy, and Siskel and Ebert talked about this on their review, which, by the way, I've been watching a lot of their old reviews because I've been reading the Roger Ebert book, Life Itself, which is phenomenal. That's a great book. But I was watching a lot of their old reviews, and I see them review Ghostbusters, and they said what made this movie so interesting is that it's a comedy, but the special effects are actually really good. They did a really good job.
It could have gone either way with that.
And they still hold up pretty good.
It's 40 years ago.
40 years later.
And I got the
Ghostbusters shirt. Now, the video game for Nintendo did suck. However, if you play the real Ghostbusters arcade game, that's pretty good. It came out, I think, in the late 80s. When, by that point, the arcade games were just coin munchers. But if you have it on the RetroPie, you could have unlimited lives, so you could just finish it. The next up is, number 3, is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Show them the potatoes.
Hold on to your potatoes. But
potatoes.
This movie is insane. It's just really funny. It's all over the place. It's crazy. Leonard Maltin, and I've held this against him for quite some time, gave it 2 stars. A lot of critics didn't get it, but a lot of critics did, including Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. And it's an amazing movie. It's funny. It's got action. It is very violent. And when you watch it with younger people, like one day I was watching it with a class because the teacher was showing them something about India, and she had a list of movies you could show them that she had on our Amazon account. And one of them was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I'm like, I don't want to see Slumdog Millionaire. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And it is quite, I would say it's a little culturally maybe insensitive. That's why the Indian government said we're not filming the movie here. They had to film it in Sri Lanka because the Indian government was very strict. They demanded script approval. They wanted to know what was going into this movie, and rightly so, because there is a little bit of, cultural, I wouldn't say insensitivity. Shiva brought you here.
Shiva brought you here.
But, I could quote that entire movie, even the lines that nobody remembers. Yeah, that was great. I like when they're on the bridge. When they're on the bridge and having this hardcore fight and they're punching each other, and Sharon says, "Got me a heart." I'm like, "Oh my god, I never even thought of that." And then that gives Mulder, "Thanks a lot, Short Round. You almost killed Indiana Jones." Because when Short Round screams, "Cover your heart," that's when Mola Ram starts to try and rip his heart out. It's thanks a lot, kid. You almost got Indiana Jones.
Well, he was trying to warn him, I guess.
I mean, if he did die there, though, we wouldn't have those other Indiana Jones movies. No. Well, Last Crusade is good. But,
Mola Ram and Dougie would take over the world.
Yeah, they should have had Mola Ram.
Dougie
They should have they needed some Mola Ram type of guy in the last movie.
Mola Ram was such a great villain.
Mads Mikkelsen and some other people that I didn't care about. But Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is funny. It's the only one that has the orange and white typeface over the title. The rest of them did the Raiders typeface, which was black and white titles over the screen for the title.
It's one of those movies.
It's a real odd film.
It'll have a few scenes of exposition and everything, but you're right in the middle of the action. It's not like Raiders where he'll have that action scene in the beginning and then he'll be back at school and everything like that. I mean, this one, he's throughout the entire movie, he's out there. Indiana Jones is out there and he's doing his thing. And to me, I like it's almost like a family dynamic with him and Willie and Short Round. And I love them. And
nice
it's
try,
one of my favorite
Shed.
movies of all time. It's my personal favorite of '84.
It's the best of the Indiana Jones movies, in my opinion.
I
love Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Raiders of the Lost
Ark is great.
See, to me, Raiders of the Lost Ark is like all things to all people. So everybody loves that movie. But I like Indiana Jones because, like, not everybody's going to love this movie, but I really dig it, man. Like, I really get... And I love Raiders, don't get me wrong. Raiders of the Lost Ark is incredible.
It's one of the
and
best
probably the better film, but it's not really about what's the better movie. It's which one really reaches you a little bit more. And I think that this one really... I felt like there was a personal touch to this.
It, like, resonates more, I think.
Yeah, and also, too, George Lucas was going through some dark times when this was being developed. So I think there's a lot of dark stuff in this movie. I mean, the whole thing is about a guy ripping people's hearts out. And, Marcia Lucas... Marcia Lucas ripped his heart out when she left him for a guy that was putting in the stained glass windows.
Man.
The guy was 10 years younger than them. He was just a guy that put in windows. And she got $50 million for it. She got, like, all that Star Wars money.
Oh, man.
That's why there's a good thing they kept those toys and things going, because they probably would have never been
merchandising.
More Star Wars movies because that was a really bad divorce. If she left him after American Graffiti, he would have been just fine, but it is in a way. And you think, well, that has nothing to do with what's going on in his life. Yes, it does. When you're a writer or a creator, whatever you're going through in life is projected onto the screen. It comes out in your art. And God bless you, George. You made some... People will give George Lucas a hard time over Jar Jar and everything, but the man was great. And he gave us Star Wars, he gave us Indiana Jones. If it wasn't for him...
He may have given us Jar Jar and Boss Nass, but he also gave us Darth Vader and Chewbacca. So.
Yeah. Indiana Jones.
We
wouldn't have had Indiana Jones.
We wouldn't have had Indiana Jones if it wasn't for him. And by the way, he saved Spielberg's career, because back in the days, kiddies, and I may have mentioned this in another video, if you made one bad flop... Now, Spielberg was doing great with Jaws and
Close Encounters
and stuff, but he made one bad flop in 1941, and that was almost it for it. And Lucas is like, "Don't worry, I got a good." Because he said, "I was thinking about maybe doing an Indian, doing a James Bond."
He tried to do James Bond, and they said no.
I got something better than James Bond. Ironically, Sean Connery's in the third one, but he's like, "I got something better than James Bond."
And some of the Bond villains.
This character, Indiana Jones, and was like, "Oh."
Also, Walter Donovan was in For Your Eyes Only.
That's true.
Well, Spielberg asked to do what's it called, James Bond, and they said no. Those Brits, who needs them? After that last James Bond movie, I'm done with James Bond.
Yeah.
I don't think I've you know what it is? I've seen all of them from Dr. No to Spectre, and I pretty much liked all of them. I never said I hated a James Bond until the last James Bond movie, No Time to Die. I hated that film. It was so American, and the worst American, like Disney American, just garbage. It's so stupid. And so many logical questions you could ask yourself. Like, okay, James Bond is infected with a nanovirus, which is a little computers running around. And the idea was if he meets his daughter and he shook her hand or something, she would immediately die from the virus. I said, okay, little mini computers in him, a nanovirus. He has an EMP in his watch. And instead of using it on him to kill the virus, he just kind of just uses it as a throwaway gag in the movie that makes no sense. The movie was nonsense. And then at the end, they kill James Bond.
Yeah.
You can't do that. How can you kill James Bond? Especially...
It's like the last 10 years, I think like every single movie, from Star Wars to Terminator sequel, what was it, Dark Fate or whatever?
Oh,
They killed John Connor in the first 5 minutes. And it's just terrible. Like,
I can't curse on this.
You kill... How many franchises are they going to kill the main characters? It's just like...
And then they remake it like 3 years later and say, oh, that movie we just made 3 years ago that we thought was going to revitalize the franchise? Nope. Here's the exact same attempt. Like, they're talking about doing another Halloween, but doing like another reboot. I'm like, wait a second.
Another reboot of Halloween.
Not even a sequel to Halloween Ends or whatever it was. It's insane, and it's got to stop. What we need is brand new movies. We need something like, this is Spinal Tap. This is my number 2 favorite of 84. What a movie. This movie is so funny. And especially if you like that kind of music, like the guys that started their bands in the 60s and then got really hard rock in the 70s, like Led Zeppelin and bands like that. It's like that kind of stuff is really funny. And even John Anderson from Yes, and Yes isn't really a metal band, but they are a rock band. John Anderson, who's the lead singer, loves Spinal Tap, and he was telling the other guys in the band, "You guys gotta watch this movie." And they're like, "No, we don't want to see it." Because a lot of rockers were very insulted, especially British rockers were very insulted because these weren't British guys; they were playing a British rock band.
Yeah.
So they were doubly insulted, and a lot of rock musicians at the time didn't like this movie. But this movie predicted so much, like the Black Album. Who came out with the Black Album 12 years later? Metallica. Came out with the Black Album, or not even, like 8 years later. Came out with the 7 years later.
The White Album, quote unquote.
But the Black Album, all black with Metallica. It's none more black,
None more black.
But
Christopher Guest is so good in this.
Oh, he's my favorite.
He's great in he was great in SNL, and he was also great.
You want to know something about Chris Guest? That's really one of the sweetest things I ever heard. And they're still together. They're still together. Jamie Lee Curtis was looking through a magazine one day. She saw a picture of, not even a picture of Chris Guest, but a picture of him as Nigel Tufnell with the guitar. And she said, "I'm going to marry that man." Like, she instantly fell in love. And they hit it off, and they're still married.
They're married?
They're still together. They're married.
So funny,
and they fell in love. And, Jamie Lee is wonderful. I love her.
Christopher Guest is so
She
good.
is so good in everything
and
she's
Lee,
in.
Speaking of Halloween,
Both of them are great in everything they're in. Chris Guest, I have to say this about Chris Guest. He's not a guy that gets a lot of press or a lot of publicity. He is hands down one of the funniest people in this world. Like the things he does, or his sketch comedy. He had a little brief stint on Saturday Night Live, but he was very funny on that.
So good.
He's great. And Spinal Tap, and unfortunately, they're making a sequel to this movie. Rob Reiner. Oh, God.
Just like they're making a sequel to Spaceball.
You know what, though? That doesn't, for some reason, that doesn't bother me as much, because I know at least Josh Gad is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I think he's playing, like, the son of Dark Helmet, maybe, because he looks kind of like Rick Moranis. If you put glasses on him, I could see him in the helmet as maybe Dark Helmet Jr. or something like that. I'm not as upset about that, because, and I'm sorry, Spaceballs is good. It's a good movie. But Spinal Tap is such a great movie.
It's not on the same level.
It's not on the same level. I mean, it's still
Spinal
good.
Tap. Actually, the funny thing about Spinal Tap is that even when my wife and I are watching like documentaries or whatever about Stonehenge, it drives her crazy. But I'm always like, Stonehenge, where the demons dwell and the banshees live, and they do live well.
Stonehenge. And the children dance to the pipes of Pan. That's another thing, too. If you went through Satanic Panic, which we did because we grew up in an evangelical church. By the way, on YouTube, I just rewatched Dances with Demons.
Oh,
kids, if you want to see a fun show, watch Dances with Demons. It was a 1980s rock and roll. It was during the height of Satanic Panic. I think it was like 86 or 7. And it was a video where this guy he's a Christian man, and he's detailing all the scary things in rock and roll. And you know what? He actually has a point about some of this stuff. Some of this stuff is quite disturbing.
Well, but you see today, like some of the recent Grammy Awards and stuff, they're dressed up like devils and demons.
It's weird.
Like, oh, okay.
But you know what? Like, that's what's funny when you watch Spinal Tap, because they don't believe in any of it. Like those rockers, the real rockers, most of them didn't believe in any stuff, but they're selling an image, and it sells records. Satan sells,
Oh, how they dance, the people of Stonehenge.
We saw this movie in Union Square, I think it was 2002, maybe 2000. We went to see it with Chris Bly at Union Square Theater, the loudest theater in New York City at that time. I don't even know if it's still there. I think it's a Regal now. They blasted it. It was so loud, and it was an incredible experience. We also saw Yellow Submarine there back in '99. Yellow Submarine, if you watch that with a sound system, a great sound system, it was incredible. So amazing. But back to Spinal Tap, Michael McKean is in this, and also Harry Shearer, who's just in about 6 years later would be a big part of The Simpsons. Yeah. And I think he just recently left the show. He was on the show for many years. Decades. And he's very funny too. Harry Shearer is a very funny guy. But it was directed by Rob Reiner. And let me say this about Rob Reiner. In the 80s, he was making like one classic, not just a good movie, classic after another. He did this movie. I never saw Sure Thing, but he did Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, and I think he did Misery.
Misery. I think he did Misery.
Yeah, he didn't direct Throw Mama from the Train. He's in it, but he didn't direct it. But it's like one of his movies.
Yeah, it is like.
So it's very. And then he did A Few Good Men. He was making some great movies. 90s. And then he did North. I never saw North, but I know it was a notoriously bad film. And honestly, he never recovered. He never
I don't think he ever recovered.
I mean, American President is okay, but he never did anything else that I'm like, oh, that's a great movie again. And now it's a shame because all he does is he goes on Twitter and he's getting all political, and it's
American
like
President is not Wag the Dog.
When he's made crap for 20 years or 20, 30 years, he's been making crap. And then he's just going on Twitter and getting all political. And then he's like, I'm going to make a sequel to Spinal Tap. No. Just don't do it, please. If he's going to do it, let someone else direct it.
Yeah.
Somebody else, a younger director maybe. Somebody. Anybody. Don't do it. Because just these legacy sequels, very few of them are that good.
Very few.
I mean, Blade Runner 2049 has grown on me, and now I really like that movie. But again, it's not as good as the first one, and they never really needed to make it. I mean, just leave it all alone. If a movie's more than 5 years old, don't make a sequel.
The final director's cut is...
the final cut of Blade Runner is great. No, but I feel that. Like, if it goes past 5-6 years, maybe it's not a good idea to make a sequel. There's some rare instances where you get a film like Aliens, but that's extremely rare. If you go past the point, like, of making a sequel, you're better off not doing it.
Well, look at James Cameron was perfect at that, right? He did the sequel to, he wrote the sequel to Rambo, right?
Rambo, and First Blood.
He did, of course, Terminator 2, which we're going to mention soon, maybe.
Possibly.
I don't know.
It's funny they should be mentioning James Cameron.
Yeah, James Cameron.
Still haven't named my favorite film of 1984.
And, he did 86. Aliens after, Alien from 79 and then 86.
And Terminator 2.
Terminator 2. Two of the best sequels ever made.
Great sequels.
Sci-fi action sequels.
But then I tried to watch Avatar 2. And I'm like, this is no aliens. No, I was watching Avatar 2 and I realized I was about a half hour in. And everybody looks the same. All the aliens look exactly the same to me. I can't tell who's a woman. I can't tell who's a man. Then there's some weird kid with dreads that's like half, or he was a human kid that was living with that. I didn't know what was going on in this film. And I'm like, I haven't seen the first Avatar in a long, long time. But I don't really feel like watching it again. And then I don't really feel like seeing this movie. And now he's making more Avatar movies. And it's like, come on, man. There's so many other things you could be doing. But speaking of James Cameron, who's a great director, and...
like fixing the Terminator.
I'm not gonna... I don't think you can fix the Terminator. No. You need all the time travel in the world.
They already had Linda Hamilton and Schwarzenegger in the last one.
Oh, God, it hurt. That movie, I never hated a movie more in my life. And I never thought I could hate a movie more than Alien Covenant. But I hated Terminator Dark Fate more than any movie they'd ever made, because you know what it was? It wasn't just a bad movie, which it was. It wasn't just a stupid movie, which it was. It was a cruel movie. It was a nasty movie. It was a hateful film.
And I never saw it, but just
the beginning, what they did to John Connor.
It's the beginning, and I couldn't even watch it. And from what people told me, and I just said, I'm not even going to waste 2 hours of my life watching it. And then
Linda Hamilton shows up, and she's not cool, and she's not badass, and she's basically being bossed around by these little kids. Get out of here. Are you kidding me?
And the thing about it, like, what I feel is so terrible about it, they didn't even take an older Edward Furlong like today. They de-aged him to make him look like the young kid from Terminator 2. So they didn't do Nick Stoll from Terminator 3. They didn't do Christian Bale from Terminator Salvation or whatever. They went specifically to rip our hearts out, like Mola Ram.
Yeah.
And,
that was the worst Mola ramming a movie ever did to me.
Rammed it really good. But, I mean,
formerly Richard Alpert, now his name is Ram.
I'm starting to laugh like the character from Last Starfighter, but... Excuse me. Anyway.
The perversions.
They went back specifically to do the young Edward Furlong that we all remembered from part 2.
Yeah. Have some water. Have some water. You know what it reminded me of? That line in Superman 2 or Superman 1 where they're talking about Ursa. They said, her perversions and unreasoning hatred of all mankind has threatened even the children of Krypton. So, like, the thing is with these silly wokey-okies who don't know how to write a script, if God gave them the power to write a script, what they don't understand is, like, you know, nobody wants to see this. This is just cruel. This is stupid. And that Mackenzie, whatever her name is, who was supposed to be, like, the Terminator human hybrid, she looked like a 10-year-old boy. It's like when Kristanna Loken was the girl Terminator. Like Kristanna Loken was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was like, you know, like this. I don't know what she was supposed to be.
And even on the John
And she
Connor
wasn't
Chronicles,
cool. She wasn't cool. Oh, yeah, Summer Glau.
Yeah.
The Terminator TV show, Sarah Connor Chronicles, that was the last good thing that ever came out of the Terminator. Those 2 seasons were excellent. Summer Glau was great as the Terminator. But let's talk about the number 1 movie of 1984 for me. I wonder
what it could be.
The Terminator.
The Terminator.
Yes. 1984. Here he is. Arnie in there. You know, when I watched Terminator Dark Fate, not to beat the dead horse, but when I watched Terminator Dark Fate, I was so upset.
I didn't waste my time.
It bothered me. It was one of those movies that was so bad that towards the end I just had to skip around and fast forward around a few scenes because it was just such rubbish.
A friend of mine saw it in the movie theater.
Oh,
and he said,
God.
They're going to do something, right, with that opening where they shoot John Connor in the first 5 minutes?
Nope.
He's like, they're going to go back in time and fix it.
Nope. Not only that, the one that did shoot him could become some kind of like he becomes like an old man, and then she meets him years later. Yeah,
he works with carpets and drapes.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
That's something out of an SNL skit or Mad TV.
That was really yeah. It's like you watch this movie and it's like you were serious about that, you know? But like it was really like what. And then I said, you know what? Immediately after watching a bad movie, I got to watch a good movie to basically refresh my soul. So I watched the original Terminator, made for $6 million. Not 600 million, not 200 million, not 300 million dollars. $6 million bucks. Shot in LA at night in the worst parts of LA, low budget as can be. And I said, I cried at the end of it. I mean, I usually get a little emotional towards the end of this movie when she's at the gas station and she takes the picture and he says, there's a storm coming. And she's like, I know. It's a very emotional ending, but it got to me so much because I said, and I've noticed as I've gotten older, I think I'm getting soft in my old age. I get more emotional now at the ends of a lot of movies than I used to. Yeah. Like I was watching Singing in the Rain recently and it got to me. The ending really got to me. And the end of the Terminator got to me because I thought to myself, it isn't so much that the movie is doing this to me. It's the fact that, my God, why can't we get movies like this anymore? Why can't they just do the work, do the research, stop it with the let's try to be fair and give everybody a job? No, give the best people the job. I don't care what race, color, or creed they are. Give the best people the job. Don't try to be fair. Don't say, well, we have to have equality. No, art is not about equality. Actually, it's against it. Because the greatest art is created by the greatest artists. If you try and get people on a project that aren't talented and aren't good, it's not going to work. It's not going to become anything good. You know, don't try to be fair. Don't try to play favorites. Don't try to help this person out, help that person out.
Participation trophy.
Yes, they got to help themselves. If they suck at writing, they got to get good. And if they're not good, fire them and hire somebody good who needs that job. Because they're right there. They're right here, too. But, you know, that's exactly it, though. Fire them. Get rid of them. I don't care whose cousin they are, whose uncle, whose nephew, whatever. Brother, sister. Oh, we got to be kind. We got to help this person out. We got to help that person out. It's like you're going in for surgery. You know, we were going to give you the best doctor to operate on your heart, but we wanted to be fair. We wanted to be equal. So this guy that graduated last in his class and doesn't know what he's doing, he's going to operate on your heart.
Yeah.
That's the logic. And everybody's like, well, it's just a movie, it's just a TV show. No, it's... See, I have a big respect for art.
If you're on a plane and the guy's, you know, the captain's like, this is your captain speaking, and he sounds slurred speech, and he's over there drinking Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
Would you want to stay on that plane? I'm just saying,
But it's the same way with art. Like, this is the biggest problem we're having, and the biggest culprit of this is Disney, because they think they're too big to fail. But let me tell you something. A couple of more problems with the economy and a couple more things going wrong. Those theme parks are going to be empty. Nobody's going to watch your movies. I watched a little bit of Wish on Disney Plus, and Carl had put it on, and I kind of was zoning in and out because it was boring and it was stupid and it was pointless, and the movie just had no life. There was nothing to keep me awake. There was nothing to keep me from looking away from my phone. And that's what I ask of these movies. Just be good enough for me to look up from my phone. Just be that good. And it's a start. You know, I'm not asking you to make Citizen Kane. I'm not asking you to make films like these great films of 1984 that we just discussed. But, you know, just go ahead and do it. Final thoughts on 1984?
Final thoughts. Wonderful year for culture, for music, movies, television, and just a classic year. I mean, I just can't think of... my life would be different if that year was, you know... And I was just coming up at just the right age and everything where I could really absorb everything like a sponge. So, like, you know, when I'm seeing... you know, with my older brother Tom, and he's like trying to cover my eyes, and I'm peeking through when they're ripping people's hearts out and down, you know, or just seeing Ghostbusters in the movie theater for the first time, or seeing all these things. It was just the perfect time. I was in the middle of, you know, my childhood and everything like that. You'd go home and you'd watch, you know, G.I. Joe and Transformers on TV, and then you go to the movies, you see things like Ghostbusters and Gremlins and, you know, Temple of Doom, and it's just a great year, a classic year.
I didn't say enough about Terminator 1. This film is a great comment on the dangers of technology. Now, technology can help us and it can also hurt us. Remember the scene where the Terminator thinks he got Sarah Connor because he goes there, Ginger's at home with her boyfriend, and he thinks he murders Sarah Connor until he hears the answering machine saying, "Can you pick up Ginger? It's Sarah. I'm at a club called Tech Noir," and all this stuff. So, like, even in a benign thing, like an answering machine, can hurt us, you know?
It's really
and it's all about the dangers of technology. Now, technology is a wonderful tool, but it could also work against us if we're not
like
careful.
All the stuff. There's a meme with John Connor's face, and he's looking at everybody, and he says, "John Connor looking at all you while you make friends with AI."
AI could be a very dangerous, very scary thing if we're not careful. Could be a great tool, but it could be a very dangerous tool.
Just like the internet and social media, it could be a great tool.
Because we know that the governments of the world, they're not using AI to say, "Okay, AI, tell me what chemical compounds will cure every form of cancer." They're not doing that. They're basically saying, "Tell me how to get through this guy's defense system, and let me spy on this person and spy on that person." You know, 1984. Right before our eyes, but it's not Big Brother. It's not this kind of totalitarian government. They come to you with, as George Carlin says, with a shirt with a happy face on it. But The Terminator is a beautiful film. It's a love story. It's a warning about technology. It's a horror film.
It is a horror
It's
film.
a crime film. It's a lot. It's a lot of movies in one. And James Cameron, he did it, man. You know, he saw Star Wars in 1977. He went home and he told his wife at the time, his first of three, he told his wife, he says, I want to quit my job as a trucker and I want to really get serious about this film thing. And, you know, he says, "Can I borrow your credit card to build some lumber for a set?" And I think that was where she basically left. But he went from being a model maker and working with Roger Corman and John Carpenter. He worked on Escape from New York.
Rest in peace, Roger Corman.
Oh, Roger Corman, God bless. That guy, see, that's a
Started
guy...
so many careers.
Jack Nicholson and Coppola and Ron Howard, and the list goes on and on and on.
Without Coppola, you wouldn't have Lucas.
So. Yes. So it's all connected. It's all connected. Jack Nicholson and Dick Miller, the great Dick Miller, who's in a film called Gremlins. He's actually in The Terminator.
Yeah, that's right.
How many movies in my top 10 feature Dick Miller?
Also, Bill Paxton, the great Bill Paxton.
Rest in peace. I love Bill Paxton. Near Dark is one of the greatest movies. If we get to a 1987 video, it'll be there. Okay, well, he's in the Terminator, and I think he's just in that one, and he's in Gremlins. But Dick Miller was a great character actor. But yeah, he worked on these little movies, and then a couple of years later, he's directing the Terminator, and it's for a first movie. There's not a lot of first movies that good. I mean, Reservoir Dogs is that good. Citizen Kane is that good. A couple of others. But man, there's very few that are as good as the Terminator. I love the music by Brad Fiedel.
Fantastic.
It's beautiful. It fits the movie perfectly. And I love how the music... You know what's so beautiful about that score? I listened to the soundtrack recently. I got it off of Hoopla. I listened to it. And it's all electronic and synth. But for the love scene, they just use the piano. And at the end, when they're zipping him up, when someone dies, I don't want to spoil it, they go back to like the orchestral type of music. And it's not the heavy hitting metal and the synth, but it's piano. It's a gentle piano music, and it's beautiful.
Even those scenes in the future are so haunting and so
they're haunting. And then again, it's made on a very low budget. One of the scariest scenes in that movie is when Kyle Reese has a dream, and the Terminator busts in, and the place gets on fire, and he can't get out. That's a very chilling scene. And just everything about that movie.
And it's funny because Alien, of course, directed by Ridley Scott. And then, Aliens was James Cameron directed. And then, of course, Terminator 1, Terminator 2. If you look at Alien and Aliens and Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, they sort of follow the same trajectory. The first one is more of a horror movie and everything.
Yes.
The second one, or a thriller type. The second one is like both of them is probably the greatest action movies ever made. I mean, Terminator 2 is arguably the greatest action movie ever made, and not just sci-fi action, like one of the greatest action movies ever made. And you just have like something like, and it's a different vibe, when you see certain movies and stuff. But that is a great 1-2. Like if you're going to see Alien and then you're going to see Aliens.
Yeah, I've done it.
Terminator 1, Terminator 2.
Well, every August 29th, I double Terminator and Terminator 2. And if you've watched them, and I never did that before till a couple of years ago. Also,
we should lobby the day that we survived Judgment Day, August 29th, because there's no real holidays in August. I says I want to do that for your birthday.
Well, my birthday's August 3rd. Who cares about that?
Oh, no, it's an important day.
But you can watch the Terminator.
August 29th should be, we should have a holiday day.
Yeah, but you know what? The problem with the Terminator is they're two great movies, and the TV show was awesome, Sarah Connor show. But the sequels diluted the whole thing. Terminator 3 actually is pretty good. It's unnecessary, but I like it. But then, the sequels just dilute everything. And it's almost like you forget how special. Yeah, you forget how special and great those first two movies were. And the same thing with Aliens. Those first two movies, man, are amazing. And I did watch Alien and Aliens back-to-back one time. And that was an experience. That was really cool to watch those two movies. Even Cameron said Ridley Scott is a director that he really idolizes and he looks up to. But that's it for 1984. My final thought is this. Great year for movies. It was a great time to be a kid. We had the movies. We had the arcades. We had good TV.
Shows, great toys.
It wasn't just as the song says, it wasn't just a different time.
Comics, everything.
There's a country song which I don't listen to country, but they played at my job a million times back when I worked in Texas Roadhouse. And there's a country song that says it wasn't just a different time, it was a different world. It was a brave new world, and we were part of it, and we were glad to be there. And hopefully some of these movies you may not have seen, maybe you've missed some of them. Any of the films we talked about on this show, please go seek them out. Even if it's something that we're not into, or you might have movies that you like from that year, just let us know in the comments. You could follow Mostly Movies 79 on Instagram. Also follow me on Letterboxd. The links will be posted. And that's it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on the 1994 video coming very soon.